All right, we're live. Let's see. Yep.
Cool.
Give it a few minutes. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of concern, Sammy, for sure. But I don't know. That's why you play them, right?
Yeah, you just hope. Well, now I think you got 4 or 5 spots open.
Yeah.
So hopefully you could get some defensive tackles. I mean, we have enough defensive ends to be fine.
Yeah. All right, we got some people filling in now, so we'll kick this off and get started. Nice to see you guys, first of all. Nice to be talking. I know it was a crazy couple of weeks for Coach Woodson and Indiana basketball, but always nice to talk Indiana football. I know we're a ways away from the Iowa game, but it's never too early to start making hot takes, wild claims, and give you everything you need to know for the season. So that's what we are here to do tonight, joined by co-founder of Hoosier Huddle, Sammy Jacobs, and Matt here, one of IU students, covers the Hoosiers on the beat for us for Hoosier Huddle as well. So, guys, welcome. How are you tonight?
I'm so relieved that we didn't have to cover the IU basketball coaching search, and it was so nice watching other people struggle with rumors and all that stuff. And it was just nice to take a step back and not have to cover a coaching search for once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing good too. Yeah, just happy to be here.
Cool. All right, so we'll get to a good amount of topics tonight. There's been a lot of Indiana football news over the last 3 weeks, which I think if you haven't been following our site or haven't been paying super close attention, you may have missed. And I think the first thing that really happened that was huge was Dylan McCullough is back at IU, Sammy, and he fills a hole that Mike Hart left when he went to Michigan, his alma mater, but we get a home run hire back essentially for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, and the interesting part there is McCullough was the one doing the reaching out to Tom Allen when that position opened, which is you don't really see a lot of NFL coaches reaching out to, unless they're, coaching a team that, your staff is out, but the Chiefs had been to back-to-back Super Bowls, and their offense is still pretty explosive and things like that. So, it was Matt Weaver from Peegs had hinted at it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't really like a total surprise that it was McCullough, but the fact that he reached out to Allen and wanted to come back, that was surprising. I think that means a lot. And I do think it's an upgrade over Mike Hart. And Mike Hart was a good recruiter. He brought in some good backs, and he's a good coach. And he was on the list for the Broyles Award a couple years ago as well. But he didn't rotate his running backs enough to my liking. You saw Stevie Scott get the majority of the carries, and then behind him, Samson James, he battled injuries. He battled, I think there were some personal issues that haven't come out with, family and stuff. But it was like Stevie Scott or nothing. And you go back to Dylan McCullough's first tenure at IU, and you look at go back to 2013 when you had Stephen Houston, Tevin Coleman, and D'Angelo Roberts. All of those guys played a significant role in the offense. And, it was kind of Tevin's breakout year was 2013. And he would have gone for 1,000 if he didn't get hurt against Illinois. And, they would have played in a bowl game if they didn't do that stupid backward pass against Minnesota. They should have just handed the ball off to Tevin or Stephen Houston. But his rotation, and I think his and you saw it in the spring, he's got an affinity for for these walk-on guys, and you saw it in his first tenure too with Alex Rodriguez and Ricky Brookins got some significant carries as well, and I think that helps you keep your running backs fresher, and maybe that gives you a little extra boost in the run game as well, where Indiana struggled mightily in the run game last year.
Yeah, I think you hit on it, but I think McCullough, he's the associate head coach as well as the running backs coach. I think he's a big Tom Allen culture guy, and I think he's a tone setter on the recruiting trail. He's got a little bit of swagger. He can show off his Super Bowl ring, his Lombardi trophy, which he had on his introductory Zoom call, which was pretty cool.
His Emmy too.
Yeah, and his Emmy. Yeah, it doesn't hurt, right? So I'm close on those three myself, but. So I definitely think that's a big pickup. So obviously Stevie Scott's off to the draft. So we got, some unproven guys behind him, some inexperienced guys. Samson James obviously has had some carries and some experience, but it'll be his backfield to start. Obviously there's other guys back there, but that's definitely a big pickup. And then the other one, and Matt, let's get your thoughts on this. Kind of flew under the radar a little bit, but Tom Allen picks up an extension running through 2027, and he's now making just under $5 million a year. So Scott Dolson, when he was hired, said he was going to pump money into the football program. He wants football to be great, and I mean this is a pretty big investment. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, yeah, I think it's really big for the program just to know that we have Allen for the next 7 years. Obviously, that we can tell by last year with the press conferences and the post-game interviews with the players that everyone loves him, and he's recruiting like way better than I've seen an IU coach in a while. So it's really nice that we have him locked in for that long, because there were rumors going around all offseason that, he's going to interview here. This team should look at him. So it's nice that we got him under contract and a well-deserved paycheck as well.
Yeah, Sammy, I mean, that's Big Ten football money, right? And this is the first time.
And welcome to the IU football offseason, Matt, where Tom Allen is named on every single job. And on our group chat, I think I've mentioned him jokingly to, if Aaron Boone gets fired from the Yankees, Tom Allen might be on their short list as well. My thing is where are they getting this money? And are you banking on fans showing up in the future? If so, they better hope that COVID gets under control and you could have a full Memorial Stadium this year. Is it donors? I know like the basketball, you had 2 major donations to do that stuff. Do you start hitting up donors, especially now that you're winning? But it's great to see the investment that they're putting into athletics. And I think the new president, President Witten, she comes from a background where the schools that she has been at have been big sports schools. She was a big proponent down. Where was she? She was at.
She was at Georgia and then Kennesaw
State
most recently.
I think so.
Yeah, Kennesaw State. She wanted the athletic to show off the athletic department too. So you have a president who, it's been basically 5 minutes since she was announced, but who seems like she gets the athletic side of running a university and things like that. So I think it's a huge step forward. And, now you're seeing he with that. And we said this when Braum got the extension at Purdue, now your expectations are going to start going up, instead of, you're overachieving for a coach who was making 2.3 or somewhere near the bottom of the Big Ten. Now you're near the top. And there's expectations that come with that as well.
Yeah, but we've been kind of clamoring, or since I was a student and before, I wanted this. Everybody wants this, and you can't have the resources and the attention and the support like we've wanted without expectations. So in my book, I'll take that every day of the week. But
and I know you guys are younger, but and some of our older fans will remember when I was a freshman, the Memorial Stadium was awful. I mean, it was too open-ended, and I had friends on the football team. They took me down to the weight room. It was like working out in somebody's garage. It was the corner of the east stands, and it was I mean, it was maybe a tenth of the size of what they have now. So it's leaps and bounds better facility-wise than it was, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I think IU putting money into their coach and into their facilities is just really big for the program, because I broadcast a baseball game a couple weeks ago, and the Illinois baseball coach was talking about how much just bringing up a facility and putting money into a program could just help them excel. So I think putting money into Tom Allen and the facilities that we have is really big for the future of the program.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then expectations-wise, another kind of out of left field announcement, and we'll have a roundtable, we'll have more content about this coming up this off season, but IU and Notre Dame finally on the schedule again, home and home, starting in 2030, which seems lifetimes away right now, but who knows where we'll be in, 9 seasons from now. But finally, IU and Notre Dame back on the schedule. Sammy, I know you're conflicted on it with the 9-game Big Ten schedule. I'm all about it. I think it's great. It's really a no-lose situation for Indiana as it stands right now. Sure, you may lose the game, but I'm not so sure it's going to be, there's going to be that much of a gap in 8-9 seasons, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I've talked a lot about non-conference scheduling. I think the Big Ten handcuffs their teams by doing their 9-game schedule. You just look at the SEC. They play 8 games. They're not going to go to 9 games. They've won with 8. They're going to continue to win with 8. And they're going to tell everybody to go to hell when they play their FCS teams in that second to last week of the season, because guess what? They're still winning national championships and things like that. Meanwhile, the Big Ten is playing 9. And we've seen it in the past. Ohio State, theoretically, it was their 9th game. The crossover games with Purdue and Iowa, they go and get shellacked, and it costs them a playoff bid. You could win the Big Ten and go 11-1 or 12-1 with the Big Ten title game and still get into the playoff. What you can't do is go 11-2 and win the Big Ten title and get in over, a one-loss SEC team. And you're going to have to hope somebody else loses 2 games. As far as IU is, I don't think this is playoff position. Because I don't think you need to schedule Notre Dame to say, hey, we need to beef up our schedule. Because you're playing Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State. You're playing somebody from the West that's not named Purdue, Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska. Like, you're playing name brands every week. Go get your 3 wins and get out of here. Unless they go back to 8 games, then you could get a little bit more flexible. Another reason I'm not a huge fan of this, it doesn't really open any recruiting territories for you. You already recruit the Chicagoland area in the region. I think you get a little bit more value of going down and playing like FIU, FAU, or USF from a recruiting standpoint. Playing on NBC, if it's still on NBC in 2030 or whatever television provider is going to be. I mean, you're playing on national TV every week anyway. It's not 1991 where it's, oh my God, you're playing on NBC. This is so awesome. And things like that. Another thing it is, and I know you like this, Alex, and I think I get giggles out of it too, is all the reversible jacket Indiana basketball fans are going to be put in a pinch, and it's going to be fun to watch them squirm. And they know exactly the people I'm talking about, and they'll be offended about it. But the people who root for Notre Dame football and Indiana basketball, and I understand it, they were both on TV in the 70s, and they were both back in the golden age and things like that. But it's going to put you in a bind, and it's going to show you, okay, now you have to pick sides and things like that. So, look, it's a long way off. And who knows what college football is going to look like in 2030 and 2031 and things like that. But I did not share the enthusiasm that a lot of people had for this series.
I mean, I personally was all for it just because I think, like, back to when Oklahoma and Ohio State played, and either team that lost got credit just for going out there early in the eyes of the playoff committee. And we don't know what the playoffs can look like you were saying, in 10 years. Like, it could be 8 teams. It could be 10 teams by then. They could switch it around. But I also think back to, like, yes, that the Big Ten has a lot of very good teams, but sometimes they don't get as much respect. So going out to play like a Notre Dame and like having that schedule team on early, and if we have an early loss and then we run the table or something like that, I could just beef up our strength of schedule. And because this year we didn't really get that much respect for beating those teams that we did. Like we stayed at 10 after beating Wisconsin. Florida jumped down 2 spots for losing to LSU. Like I think that having something like that on our schedule could really help beef up, win or lose that game. It could really help just beef up our playoff resume.
Yeah, and I think again it's a no lose. Sammy, like the recruiting thing, I get going down to FIU, but at this point, if Tom Allen is still the coach in 2030, I think the Florida pipeline is established well enough at this point with the high school coaches he knows down there that playing FIU, I'm not sure you're not going to bring a recruit to FIU stadium. FIU is not going to let you bring a kid in, right? But I think early in the season, if a recruit now has to decide between, am I going to go watch Ohio State play Bowling Green, or am I going to go to Bloomington and watch IU play Notre Dame? I think it's a bigger recruiting weekend for local guys because we're still in the state not getting the top 2 or 3 guys in Indiana every year. Those are the Notre Dame, Ohio State guys. So if we're starting to play Notre Dame, and if we beat them, especially if we beat them in South Bend, I mean, that propels the whole program and the whole fan base. And I think it's also for the home game in 2031, as that being part of your season ticket package. Hopefully that's an easy way to lock in season ticket holders if you get a Notre Dame game in Bloomington for the first time in 80 years or whatever it'll be. I think. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see where sports are at that point in time. But yeah, I get the upside to it. But who knows where IU is going to be? 10 years ago, they were looking at a 1-11 season, in the face with a new coach. So, who knows what Notre Dame's going to look like? Who knows what IU is going to look like? But yeah, it'll be fun. I'm going to be excited about it. I don't share everybody's enthusiasm 10 years out. Yeah. No, that's fair. So we'll have more to come on a pretty surprising series, but cool nonetheless for Indiana. So, Sammy, I know you were around spring ball a little bit. You were following along. You were, on the beat like normal, as much as we could this year, right? But lots of interesting storylines. We'll get into the transfer portal in a second because there's some notable departures for sure. But I think you have to start with 2 areas for me. One is Dexter Williams goes down. Basically, you have Jack Tuttle and walk-on. Not basically. You have Jack Tuttle as the only scholarship quarterback on the roster for most of spring ball. And then 2, Wap is gone, and you have a bunch of young playmakers, including DJ Matthews. We'll talk about transfers in a second. But youngish receivers ready to step up, and then Jack Tuttle as the only scholarship quarterback during spring. Do you think that hurts anything with the offense?
I think it helps Tuttle. I think it will help him a lot. He was out with mono his first spring practice. He missed half of spring. Last year, of course, with COVID canceled, you only had 4 practices. So it's going to help his development. I think it'll help his rapport with his receivers. The thing that worries me, and it's starting to worry me more with Matt, and you've been in these press conferences too, the questions about Michael Penix's health and him, is he going to be ready for fall camp? And it's, every ACL injury is different. There's different kinds of tears and all that stuff. We don't know what kind of tear it was. And I believe he was on the sidelines at the bowl game, not on crutches and things like that. And that was post-surgery. But it's, as an Indiana football fan, there's like a little dark shadow creeping up. What happens if he's not ready? And that's where Tuttle's got to be ready. And then you bring in Donovan McCulley in the fall too. And he's Dexter Williams, I'm counting out for the season.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been made official, but he did tear his ACL. Usually that's about a 12-month deal, 8 to 12 months. And so that puts you in October at the earliest. So you're looking at a true freshman in the best case scenario, third, and we'll talk about getting a transfer quarterback, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's I'm a little concerned with, all right, if Michael Penix is not 100%, what do you do? But I think that's where it comes in. Tuttle had all the first team reps for most of spring practice. We had that article come out a couple days ago. He loves this team. He's improving. He's a good quarterback, and don't let the bowl game fool you. He played that game with a separated throwing shoulder, and he still made. There were passes that were not good. Yeah. But pull your shoulder out of your socket and throw some passes and see how good you are, and things like that. But the kid's as tough as nails. And he's going to give his best effort. My problem is depth. God forbid Tuttle goes down or, gets banged up, and you have an incident like Wisconsin where, you just hope he runs out of the locker room and it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, obviously you have McCauley coming in who's a 4-star recruit, but we don't know how ready he's going to be because he didn't early enroll, so he hasn't really learned the offense all that much. So coming in, he's going to be pretty slow getting ready for the offense. And then, I've seen Penix walking around campus, and he's walking all right, and it looks like he's walking fine. But they said when the press conference I was in, he's not running yet, and they hope that he's going to be running by the summer. But you never know with ACL injuries how this is going to go. So it could very well be Tuttle starting off the season, and it's probably for the best that he's getting all these first team reps to start in the spring.
Yeah, and it's nothing official that we've heard. It's the line of questioning that's making me nervous, and things like that.
Yeah,
that's what's making me nervous.
I think the one, Tuttle's great. He's probably, one of the better backups we've had in, a long time. Maybe Roberson would be your second best backup recently, but
Nate Sudfeld, he was backing up Cam Kaufman.
Yeah. But this team, this year, last year, since Penix has been here, really is not going to hit its ceiling unless Mike is on the field anyway, and we know that. So I think if something were to happen to Mike, we know Jack is going to be ready and he's going to be good, but it's probably not, your top 10 Indiana that we're hoping for again this season. But you never know, and that's why you play the games. But I think if Mike is healthy, obviously Mike is the guy. There's no doubting that. But that's a big storyline coming out of spring ball here is lack of depth at quarterback.
Yep.
And then let's hop over real quick to the notorious transfer portal for basketball, football. Everybody in the entire world seems to be in the transfer portal or declaring for the draft with an agent or transferring to a different school or opening up their options. IU lost another piece today, which I felt like was pretty surprising. I thought DeMarjay Lewis, who played a little bit last year, but he's very talented defensive tackle that they picked up late in the 2020 recruiting cycle. I think a lot of us in the Hoosier Huddle side were very surprised by his departure this morning.
Yeah, well, it actually says he didn't see any game action. I swear I saw him in there, but it says he didn't play in 2020, which I guess is part of the reason maybe he's in the transfer portal. Yeah. But yeah, you have who left? Jeremy Passmore, Tremar Reese, DeMarjay Lewis. Is there another defensive lineman I'm missing? Jerome Johnson went pro.
Javon Swan.
Javon Swan went pro. You're missing a lot of guys who were impactful players last year. And, everybody's going to say that the secondary is the strength of this. But that secondary strength comes from your defensive line eating up blocks on offense. If you can't eat up blocks and then those guys get to the second level and can block Tylen Mullen coming off the edge or can block Micah McFadden coming, up the middle, it's not your defense is going to take a major step back. So maybe they hit the transfer portal, taketh, and it could also giveth as well. So maybe they look into the transfer portal. Alan said last week that I think at the time they had 2 or 3 openings. Yeah. And now they're, I think, up to either 4 or 5. they're going to aggressively hit the transfer portal. And it's going to be defensive line. They need some, I think, secondary depth, he said as well. And then, maybe offensive line, and then your best skill player on offense as well. And he did bring in James Bamba, who's a tight end. He's a preferred walk-on guy who's not eating up a scholarship, but he's got good size. He had some legal issues at Miami of Ohio, but his dad was a fullback at IU, and he's from Bloomington, so maybe a change of scenery would be good for him. The transfer portal is going to be crazy in both sports.
Yeah, offense, you lost a little bit to TJ Ivy, who was a rotation tight end, a pretty good blocker at good size. He's out. He was from up here in the Chicago area, and then you lose Jordan Jakes at receiver as well. So, and Rashawn Williams too, receiver. So, definitely some losses on offense. I think the defensive side is more concerning with the guys in the draft, and especially on the interior of that defensive line now. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. And then Javon Swan, we talked about off to the draft. Jamar Johnson off to the draft. Interesting storylines, I guess, to follow in the NFL draft for IU. It could be one of the best weekends for the program in terms of the NFL in a long, long time here with some guys. Obviously, Jamar Johnson is probably the headliner. He'll probably be the first guy taken out of the Hoosiers. I've seen him in some first rounds. I doubt he'll be a first rounder, but he's probably a round 2, round 3 guy in the first one off the board for Indiana. You got Wap, Jerome Johnson, Javon Swan, Harry Kreider, among other guys, Stevie Scott.
Aiden Whitehead.
Yeah, Whitehead. So we'll see. Sammy, if you had to put an over-under for everybody on number of Hoosiers that get drafted, how many are you going to go with?
I'd put it at 2.5, at least based on – I don't know how accurate The Athletic is on their draft, but they have their 7-round mock draft out, and I think Jamar Johnson was the only guy in there. Now, I was looking at it at 10:30 last night before falling asleep, so I might have missed a guy. But I would set it at 2.5. I think you not hit the nail on the head, Jamar Johnson. We're going to have my buddy Dan on Thursday on our podcast, and he worked for Draft Bible, and he's our NFL draft guy. So we'll go into it a little bit more depth then. But Jamar Johnson, I really like Jerome Johnson. Javon Swan did really well at Pro Day as well. Apparently, Wap Villiers going up draft boards as well. I didn't think he had a great pro day, but they think he's a little bit bigger than they thought and a little bit stronger, and things like that.
Yeah,
I like Hayden Whitehead. I think he's a really good punter, but that's usually a 7th round pick, maybe undrafted free agent, unless you're like the Raiders and are going to take the guy with like your 10th pick or something.
Yeah.
And then Swan had a great pro day running the shuttle. He could be one of those tweener guys, on an athletic defense. And then Harry Kreider, man, I thought he had a bad year at center last year snapping the ball. And I was kind of surprised. I know he was selected to the Shrine Game. Obviously, it didn't happen, but to the Shrine Game and things like that. But I was kind of shocked that he didn't come back, just the way he performed.
And yeah, I mean, obviously you have Jamar Johnson at the top of most lists. I've seen him like 2nd round most of the time, early 2nd round, and then you just never know. I mean, obviously leading up to the draft now coming up, each of these players are meeting with different teams, so you never know which team is going to be able to see what they want in each player. And so it'll be interesting coming down the line. I think the draft's April 29th. So it'll be interesting coming down the line who's making calls, what players slip up, and any of these players can like move up with their team workouts too.
Yeah, and I think now we have, there's a backfill or a pipeline, if you want to call it, of NFL caliber talent on the roster and coming in now, which is nice to see. That's how you build a really successful program in the Big Ten. So some guys next year should be around as well. some of those guys coming in the future. We'll start with 2022, but Caden Turner, linebacker out of Arkansas, is the first commit for the 2022 class, and he's the only commit so far in the 2022 class. Sammy, I know the dead period is ending on June 1st, and we've already seen a lot of IU's top targets for 22 and 23 announced that they'll be coming to Bloomington in June. So how do you think the 22 class is going to shape out? What are you hearing as far as timelines, class size, things like that?
Well, there's going to be a lot of visits in June, and I know Matt, Zach, and Evan are going to help us cover it for Hoosier Huddle. It's the last I looked, there was almost, I think, 19 official visits set for June. And there are a lot of the prospects, I would say over half of them are probably 4-star, maybe better, or very high 3-star, most of them. And it's an impressive list. You also had Caden Curry down for an unofficial visit, according to his Twitter, but he's coming back in June. He would be a huge get. If you could pull him, like you said, Alex, with the Notre Dame series, he's one of those guys who would end up at Notre Dame or Ohio State, where they come in, poach those top guys out. But June's going to be a big month. And I think with this one-time transfer thing, I have no idea how big class sizes are going to be until the very latest. I expect probably a close to full class. But you also have to see what the NCAA is going to do with these COVID, extra years. But it should be going back to your 85-man scholarship after this year. We'll also see who declares early. You can see Tywin Mullen declare early. If Penix has a huge year, maybe you see him pull the trigger since he's been battling injuries his whole career. So it's going to be interesting to see, who comes back and that stuff. But June is going to be a huge month. And Matt, you guys are going to be busy.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really fun just to see who Tom Allen can pull, and if he can pull just another really good class. I mean, obviously starting off with Caden Turner is a big start, but starting in June with all those players coming down, it's just going to be really exciting to see who they can pull, and if they can just get one of the top classes that we've ever seen, which would be awesome for the program.
Yeah, I think from what we've been, seeing and what some of the experts are saying, Matt Weaver among others, it seems like they are in really good standing with a lot of the guys on their short list, which is good. I think the list for Tom Allen and his staff is getting smaller than we've seen maybe in the Kevin Wilson era and at the start of Tom Allen's tenure as head coach, which is good. They really know who's at the top of their class and who they want to focus on. I think we're in good shape with a lot of those guys, but we'll have to see how the visits kind of shake out in June. And then
IU wants to get guys on campus too. And I asked Alan this last week. They do their best recruiting in person, and he wants them to feel the LEO culture and things like that. And a lot of times they're not going to take a commit unless they meet them in person too, to make sure that, they like Bloomington. Because the last thing you want to do is have somebody commit and you bank on it, and then all of a sudden they show up to campus and are like, hey, Bloomington's not for me. I made a mistake, and I need to go somewhere else, which it's fine. It happens. You're an 18-year-old, we've all made that college choice, and sometimes it's not a good fit, but you could kind of help that out by having them on campus for 48 hours. Now we'll see what kind of restrictions there are and, how many people could come at one time, what buildings you could go into, but just getting them on campus, talking to them in person is going to be huge for IU. And I think, I don't know it officially, but you're going to have a couple guys who are probably ready to pull the trigger. And once Allen and them talk to them, they're going to pull the trigger. So this, you could be concerned with the number that there's only one commit while, Rutgers is sitting, I think, in the top 10 of their class of 2021. But it's still early. It's still a pandemic. And I think once guys get on campus, you're going to see some dominoes start falling.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And then, we talked about Delaney McCullough back already, starting to pay off dividends. The 2023 class no matter what happens, I think will still be headlined by his son, who will probably, as it shakes out right now, may end up, if he signs, as the highest rated recruit in school history. He's a classic Tom Allen DB, plays a little corner. He'll probably play safety in Bloomington. Kind of the exact Jamar Johnson mold, just a total ball hawk, can kind of throw him all over the field in that back end of the secondary and he'll make plays. But, I mean, that's a strong start to the class. And then you add in Denzel Moore. We'll see if he ends up on campus, but for now, it's a good start to the 23 class.
Yeah, Dale McCullough, I mean, this recruit was years in the making, apparently. And you go back to McCullough's tweets back when he was at the IU at the first time, and he was bought in. And, yeah, he's probably a little bit more raw talented than Jamar Johnson, but he fits that mold. He's a guy, like you said, who's played corner, who will probably, because of his size, be moved over to safety. And you want those. We saw the benefits of that last year. You want those guys with ball skills in the secondary to pick off those passes. You can't have, guys. That's where, moving linebackers to safety because they're too small is dangerous because they don't have the hands that, corners or guys who played those positions in high school have. Denzel Moore, I think, is going to play that bull position. And that's been a focus on this spring as well. They're starting to recruit that position as like an actual position and not just, hey, you're a bigger athletic linebacker, we're going to move you down. It's, hey, you're a really good fit for this bull position. And I think that's still 2 years off. It's not 9 years like Notre Dame, but it's still, you'd still have to wait a little bit for the payoff of the 2023 class. But you're getting into the big time football thing where, all right, guys are committing to classes beyond this current cycle, which we haven't seen, I think, since we started the site, Alex.
Yeah.
Unless there was someone I missed.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not, you're not at the last second swooping in to steal. And yeah, Alan Stallings is a good player, but you're not, close to signing day, flipping guys from Central Michigan, or you're not battling with Bowling Green in Illinois anymore. Now you're getting guys that Tom Allen is calling, Zooming, whatever they're doing right now, and getting a scholarship offer and saying, you know what, I should probably take this now before they fill my spot. So that's a ways out, and guys flip all the time, but I think the 23 class obviously off to a super, super, super good start.
Yeah, and I think the McCullough signings, awesome. Obviously, like you said, he could flip, but we got Dylan's second son, his first son, obviously, at Ohio State, so that'll be a fun family rivalry that they got going on at their house.
Yep, that'll be fun for sure.
So. Well, and Dea's going to be playing at Bloomington South, so if you're in Bloomington and want to go see him play for a couple of years, go now. Those high school football games down there are fun.
Yeah, and he came from Overland Park High School out in Kansas City, or just outside Kansas City. Pretty good football school for a Midwest state. So he should light it up in Bloomington. But we'll wrap it up here. Not that much left to get to. Sammy, what are you looking forward to as your next Indiana football news or tidbit?
Just who's coming out of the transfer portal, because they got to fill these spots. And I think with semesters ending here in the next month or two, you're going to see guys pull the trigger. That's what I'm ready to see, and I'm ready for them to announce, kind of their game day festivities at IU. How many people are going to be in the stands? Is there going to be tailgating and stuff like that? Because right now baseball season stinks. So it's
the Knicks are good though. You can't have them all.
I know. I saw a meme the other day that was, what was it? Infinity War, where Gamora asked Thanos, "What did it cost you?" Yeah. The Knicks were good. What did it cost? It cost me the Yankees.
Yep.
So yeah, don't want to ask what it is. It's going to cost the Jets to be good.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Probably the Knicks.
Yeah. Matt, other than waiting for the Iowa game, where we got the 100-day countdown coming up, where we'll feature every player on the roster, no matter scholarship, walk-on, position numbers. So is that something Hoosier Huddle fans and readers should be looking out for?
Yeah, definitely look out into that because it's more than just Michael Penix and it's more than just Mike McFadden. There's a lot of players, walk-ons and not, that don't get a lot of notice. So definitely look out for that and just find out some more information about different football players and different storylines regarding those players.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite things we do every year. I think it's a great way to show what it really takes to be a successful program, because now Alan always talks about it, and he's brought it up a couple times in his press conferences, but wanting to build up the walk-on program and have guys that want to be on the scout team and want to play special teams. I think you're starting to really see that. So,
well, if Ryder Anderson's going to be hopping on scout team from the #1 defense, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I think that'll be good as well. Sammy, we always end it, but give me one word to describe the spring ball for Indiana football.
One word. Distant. And it was distant because it was kind of a throwback to, when I started the site, didn't have the access. You're relying a lot on what the coaches are saying and questions are asked in the press conference, whereas in the past, we got to watch practice and you could see it for yourself and things like that. So it was kind of distant.
Matt, what about you? Spring ball's wrapped up in the rearview mirror. One word here for the Hoosiers moving forward.
Patience. Definitely with IU fans, they definitely jumped the gun on a lot of things, like we saw with the coaching carousel in the basketball. So just patience with Penix news, patience with different things coming in around recruiting and stuff like that, and patience just to get the season underway.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one. I think for me, kind of along the same lines, I would go with steady. I think there's a really, really good foundation in place right now with the entire coaching staff, with the roster, and with the fan base. So I think right now is a good time to kind of keep the positive momentum going, keep the energy up, and then hopefully we'll see everybody in the stands in Bloomington this fall. But Sammy, Matt, thanks for hopping on this evening. We'll try to do this once a month or every couple of weeks here as we get more news. But any final thoughts before we part here?
Go ahead, Matt.
I think that's all I got.
Cool. All right. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Hoosier_Huddle as we get any IUFB news and notes. And then be sure, of course, to check out the site at HoosierHuddle.com for all the latest. Sammy, Matt, thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your nights.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Alex.